Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I am bringing you my September TBR, kind of. This is less of a September TBR and more of a holy shit, I have a lot of arcs to read video. First of all, I'm gonna apologize because the window's open because it's nice and cool here in the UK finally. I feel like the last time I filmed a video it was boiling hot. Now it's finally cooled off and we're in sweater weather, hence the sweater. And yeah, so if you hear screaming or cars or something, that's what that is. But this time of year is very exciting for publishing because there's so many books coming out. Kind of September is the big month for publishing before Christmas. It's kind of when the Christmas season kicks off, and I don't know if you guys have seen, but apparently, I think it's in the UK, there are 600 books publishing on the 3rd of September this year, which is madness. And those are a combination of academic books and trade books, but still, like, that's a lot. So I'm sure that gives you a relatively good idea of the size of this TBR video and also the panic that I am definitely feeling regarding my reading. So all of these books that I have, I compiled onto a list and created an emergency ARC reading schedule because they're all books that have come out either in the second half of the year so far or are coming out in later months in the year that I need to read because I have review copies of them, and yeah, I want to do my like due diligence by the authors and publishers by actually reading these books. The problem is that there's so much good stuff coming out that this list is, I think, I'll double check in a minute, but I think it's 33 books long, which is quite a lot. So for this video, this isn't, obviously I can't read 33 books in a month, that's madness, but what I'm going to do to give you an idea of what I'm going to be focusing on in the month of September, and kind of probably, you know, upcoming months as well, I'm just gonna list off all of the books that I have to read from July through to the end of the year. Fortunately, I don't have anything for December, so at least that month is free. But this doesn't include any new releases or anything that I don't own a copy of, whether it's a physical copy or a digital review copy. So that'll be a different video. We can get into that later. But these are just all of the books that I have that are publishing in the second half of the year that I have not read yet, that I have been provided by a publisher. So what I'm gonna do is, some of these are physical copies, as I say, some of them are digital copies. I'm not gonna pull them all off the shelf and try to like organize them and everything like that. So basically I am going to tell you the book, the author, the publication date in the UK as it currently stands, and I'll tell you like a sentence about each book because there's a lot to get through and I don't want this video to be like an hour long. So let's go ahead and get started. I will stop rambling. So I will just go ahead and read these in order because they're organized by publication date. So the first book I have is Burn Our Bodies Down by Rory Power. This came out on the 7th of July, and I believe it's a contemporary kind of horror type YA book. I read, was it Wilder Girls, which came out last year and didn't really think much of it, but I liked a lot of her ideas, so I'm going to go ahead and read this one. We'll see how it goes. All of the links to these books will be down below, so you can go ahead and check them out there if you want to learn a little bit more. So the next book is Girl, Serpent, Thorn, which I always confuse the order of those words in the title, and I believe this is by Melissa Bashardoust. This also came out on the 7th of July. It is a YA fantasy book that has that fabulous like white cover with the snake on it, and I believe it's about a girl who, if she comes into contact with anyone, she will kill them, she'll poison them. I believe it's a FF romance, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd need to confirm that. But it looks really good. I'm very interested in that, and I've heard some good things about it so far. Next up is a book called Red Noise, and this is by John P. Murray. This came out on the 14th of July. This is an adult, I think it's a space opera. It's a sci-fi book, but it's got a lot of like Western flair to it, which makes me kind of think Firefly, which is very exciting. So I don't know anything about this author. I don't really know much about this particular book. I haven't heard anyone talking about it, but it sounds really cool, so that will be a really fun one. Then I have The Year of the Witching, and I believe this is by Alexis Henderson. If I mess up any of the authors' names, the covers will be right here, so I'm just going to apologize in advance. I didn't write down the authors' names when I made this list. But this came out on the 23rd of July. It is a kind of feminist horror book that takes place, I believe it's maybe historical fiction, or it's at least got those historical vibes, and it's apparently really good. I think there's some content warnings that come with it, so if you're interested in reading this and you read it before I do, I would go ahead and check out Goodreads reviews to see if you can get some of those content warnings, because I think there's some dark stuff that happens in this. Coming out on the 4th of August is All the Stars and Teeth. This is by, I believe, Adeline Grace. I think this is a YA fantasy, and I think it's piratey or mermaidy or somehow nautical themed, which is very cool. I've seen a ton of people that I know in the UK who are book bloggers read it and review it. I haven't actually checked out any of those reviews yet because I've been useless the past couple of weeks. I'll go into that in my wrap up. But I've heard good things about this one, and it sounds like a lot of fun. Then I've got First Sister by Lyndon A. Lewis. This is a queer space opera, and I'm really looking forward to this one. It's a little bit mysterious to me at the moment, but I feel like it's one of those books that is definitely one of the ones that you should really go into knowing as little as possible. But I have had some friends read it, and I know a lot of people are really interested in this one, so this is definitely on my list. Then I have Sorcery of a Queen by Brian Naslund. This is the second book in the I can't remember what the name of the series is. I think it's The Dragons of Terra, but it's the sequel to Blood and Exile, which was one of my favorite books last year. I really enjoyed this series because it has that classic fantasy vibe. However, it feels like it's been updated for a modern audience. For example, there are women who actually do things in this book, so I'm very excited for this one. Not going to go into what it's about because it's a sequel and that seems like a bad idea, but I am really looking forward to this. It came out on the 6th of August, so I'm a little bit behind. I really want to get to this though. It's currently sat on my nightstand. Also on the 6th of August, Dangerous Remedy by, I believe it's Kat Dunn, came out. I actually read this. This is the one book on this list that I haven't read so far. I thought it was okay. I'll talk about it in my wrap-up. It was fine. I felt like it was maybe a little bit of a generic YA fantasy when I was hoping for something that would be a little bit more. But if you're a YA reader, predominantly, I think you will enjoy that one. Next, also on the 6th of August, clearly a busy publishing day, was Seven Devils by Elizabeth May and Laura Lamb, and I've never read anything by Elizabeth May. I really enjoy Laura Lamb, and also this is billed as a feminist Guardians of the Galaxy. It sounds really fun. I feel like this could be one that I either really love or just does not click with me, just based on just some feelings that I have about it and about some of the authors and things like that. But it should be a good one. I'm looking forward to that. Then I have Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. This came out on the 18th of August, and I'm really excited for this. I had actually started the audiobook for this, which is my review copy of this book, but for some reason my brain just isn't clicking with the audiobook. The narrator is really good, and the story seems really good so far, but I feel like I'm missing something. I've started it twice, and I feel like maybe I feel like I'm missing a chapter or something like that, which I'm sure is not actually the case. So I've actually bought myself a copy of this book and it'll be showing up eventually. So I'm going to read the physical version. I have the audiobook as an ARC, and I'm not going to continue on with that one, even though it is a good audiobook. It's just for some reason my brain is not liking it. Then I have on the 20th of August, The Quickening by Rhiannon Ward, and this sounds really good. This sounds like a really fun one. It is a historical kind of gothic-y novel. I believe it's got seances. It's set just after World War II, I believe, and it's got just like good spooky gothic themes. This one sounds like a lot of fun for October and kind of the spooky season, which I always want to read spooky reads in sort of the fall, and I never get around to it because stuff like this happens. All these amazing books come out, so all of my kind of atmospheric reading gets shelved for this season. However, The Quickening I think is going to satisfy that for me, and I'm really looking forward to that. Then I have XX, which is by Rhian Hughes. This came out on the 20th of August, and this is a funny one. You'll see this in my book haul as well. It is 1,000 pages, a hardcover, and it is, I believe, a first contact sci-fi story. It's definitely sci-fi, but it's also a mixed media book, and it's got kind of like weird typographical adventures in it. It sounds really intriguing. I don't know if this is going to be my thing or not, but I was very interested in this. I tend to really enjoy mixed media books. Not all the time, but I usually do. And so yeah, I'm very curious about this one. I think it's either going to be something that I really love, or it's just going to be kind of, I can sense it potentially being a little bit pretentious, but we'll see. Then I have Fable by, oh my god, what's her name? Adrienne Young. She is the author of Sky in the Deep and The Girl the Sea Gave Back. This is a YA historical fiction book. Her books tend to be Viking related. I'm not entirely sure if this one is. I just kind of requested it because it was Read Now on NetGalley, which meant that it didn't have to be approved by a publisher, and I was just really curious and I just never got around to it. So I don't really know a huge amount about it, but it has a great cover. I really like the cover, and it'll be linked down below if you want to check out more, but I bet if you're a fan of her other books, you're probably pretty excited about this one. Right, so on the 3rd of September I have The Inheritance Game, which is by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, I believe. I've actually started this one. I am in the middle of reading this. I didn't mark that on my schedule though, bad me. So I'm technically in the middle of 2 of these books. This is a contemporary YA book that is very Knives Out, which is a movie I really loved. So this follows a girl who's basically had been raised by a single mom. Her mom passes away. She's been kind of struggling ever since, and she finds out that she is basically the sole beneficiary of a multi-billion-dollar man's will, and he's just passed away. And so the family, not thrilled about this. She doesn't know why he's left her all this money. She's very confused, she's very conflicted. Everyone in the family obviously hates her, and it's fun so far. I don't think it's going to be a hugely deep book, but it is a really fun summer read so far. So hopefully you will see that in my September wrap-up. I don't think I'm going to finish it today, which is the last day of the month. Next up I have a book called Witch Child by Celia Rees. So this may look very familiar to a lot of you guys. The cover looks very familiar to me, which is why I went ahead and requested it. This is, I think, the 20th anniversary edition of this book. It's a much older book, a YA book, and it's one that I never read, but I believe it's based on one of the multitude of witch trials in the UK, and this young girl who is trying to flee them because I believe her grandmother was tortured and hung as a witch. It sounds really fun. I don't know, I kind of got excited that this kind of nostalgia type book was up for request, so I went ahead and I hit that button. I do have a problem, but I have read one of her books before. I can't remember which one. I think it was Piratey, and I did really enjoy it when I read it like 15 years ago. So this will be an interesting one. I am very, very curious to kind of dive back into sort of YA feeling books from many years ago, so it should be good. I'm looking forward to this, and it's historical fiction, which I do enjoy in YA. So coming out on the 11th of September is Star Daughter by Shweta Thakrar. This looks amazing. This is actually a book that so many people have been talking about for so long that I thought it came out like over the summer. I thought it came out way earlier than it actually did. This looks really interesting to me. I have a feeling it's going to be a very sort of lyrical and beautiful book, and it sounds like it's going to be just absolutely phenomenal. So I believe it is a contemporary fantasy, and it follows some Hindu mythology, and our main character is a member of the Celestial Court. That's pretty much all I know. This is definitely one of those books where I want to kind of like sink into it knowing as little as possible, but I think it's going to be a really lovely one. I don't know if you can tell, but this is one of the books that I am the most excited to read, so hopefully you will see this on an upcoming wrap-up. I think it's going to be amazing. Next up is The Phlebotomist by Chris Panettiere. This comes out on the 8th of September, and this is one I'm very curious about. I think it's going to be kind of horrific to read in the time and place we are at right now in the world, but hey ho. So I believe this takes place in a not so distant kind of dystopian future in which the government, I believe, controls people through their blood. It has something to do with blood, and the phlebotomist, I believe, is someone who works for the government and probably discovers that things are not quite so nice as they had thought. I don't know a huge amount about this one, in case that's not obvious, but it looks amazing. It sounds really, really good, and I couldn't resist that bright pink cover because, hello, obviously. Then on the 15th of September is one that I think a lot of you will be interested in. This is my other book that I am currently reading right now. This is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. I am about 200 pages in and I'm enjoying it so far. I'm very curious to see what the next 680 pages is going to be like. But this is the follow-up book in a brand new series, an adult series from Christopher Paolini, who wrote The Inheritance Cycle, which started with Aragon, which was very famous because he was like 14 when it was published, and I remembered reading that and like loving it when I was younger, and I'm very curious to reread it as an adult. I am enjoying this so far. I'm very curious to see how all these things are going to come together and where the story is going to go. But basically we follow a woman who is a xenobiologist, and she is part of a sort of pre-terraforming mission, a pre-colonizing mission on this new moon that is going to be set up for a human colony, because humans have spread out throughout the stars. She stumbles upon an alien entity, an alien artifact, and everything kind of goes to hell from there. So it's interesting so far. I'm very, very curious to see how the rest of the book is going to go. This is a big focus for me to read this week, which I'm hopefully going to vlog for you guys. So hopefully I will have this soon and have a review up for you soon. Also, the 15th of September, The Trouble with Peace by Joe Abercrombie, which is the follow-up to, oh my god, A Little Hatred, which came out last year, which I reviewed on this channel. I really, really loved. Obviously, he's one of my favorite authors. I'm very, very excited about this. I just know I'm going to enjoy it because it's a Joe Abercrombie book. I happen to really love his books. I love his world, his characters. I love the way that he twists tropes, all of that good stuff. So I don't think there's a huge amount that I can say about this one. Not only is it a sequel, but also I feel like I've rambled about Joe Abercrombie so much on this channel. You guys are probably really sick of me talking about him, but this is one of my most anticipated releases of the year. I'm very, very, very excited. On the 17th of September, we have Prime Deceptions by Valerie Valdez, I believe. This is the follow-up to Chilling Effect, which came out earlier this year, and I read and I liked. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I think I rated it 3 stars. It is a sort of kind of goofy space opera that follows the captain of a sort of salvage ship, I believe, and she gets in too deep with a bunch of criminals, and she's trying to save her sister, who is being held for ransom. The most memorable thing about it is that they're psychic cats, and Chilling Effect has one of my favorite opening scenes ever, which is these psychic cats have escaped from the cargo hold and they're trying to like round them up, and it's very funny. So I enjoyed the first one, which is why I requested the second one. I'm very curious to see where the story is gonna go, and yeah, we'll see how some of my problems with the first book get ironed out in the second book. On the 17th of September, we have The Unforgetting, which is by Rose Black. This is a historical fiction novel that I'm very curious about. I am not as sure that I'm going to love this as something like, say, The Quickening, which I talked about earlier, but I am very curious about it. Basically, we follow a girl who's been sold by her father to a kind of mad professor who is obsessed with illusion, and as she kind of gets deeper and deeper into this world, she finds out that everyone around her believes she's dead. She's got a headstone in a cemetery, she has an obituary, her parents think she's dead, obviously she's not dead, so she's trying to figure out what's going on. We'll see about this one. I'm a little bit less sure of this, but it sounds interesting enough and it could be something that I really enjoy. So this next one should be really interesting. This comes out on the 22nd of September. This is Sweet Harmony by Claire North. Claire North is a very, very well-regarded sci-fi and I believe fantasy author who I have never actually read before. This is a novella. I think it's quite a short novella. It's like 100 pages or so. And it seems like a really, really interesting one, and it seems like something that would be very kind of relevant. So basically we follow a character named Harmony, and everything is going terribly for her. She works really hard, she's exhausted all the time, she hates the way she looks, but she decides she's going to upgrade her nanos. She has these kind of like nanos that are in her body that help with her, you know, her health and her appearance and things like that. So she decides to upgrade them, and suddenly everything starts to go right for her. She's much more attractive, she feels smarter, she's just kind of a better version of herself. However, she finds out that there is indeed a price for this perfection. So this sounds like it could be really interesting. Again, I've never read any of her books before, but I'm very, very intrigued. And also it's a novella, so it's like a huge relief for all the stuff that's on this list, because it'll be short and I'll be able to finish it quickly and cross something off the list. Then on the 24th of September, I have The Ikisar Falcon by K.S. Veloso. This is the sequel to The Wolf of Oren-Yaro, which I reviewed on this channel and I loved. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I'm very excited for the sequel. She leaves us with quite the cliffhanger at the end of the first book. She wraps up the story really well, but there's definitely an oh shit moment at the end of the first book, and I'm very excited to get my hands on this. We are definitely being treated because the first book came out earlier this year, so 2 books in a series in 1 year is pretty awesome. Also on the 24th of September is Dead Man in a Ditch by Luke Arnold, and he wrote The Last Mile in Sunder City, which I also read earlier this year. This is another one where we're getting 2 books in a series in 1 year. You may know him from, is it Black Sails he's on? I didn't know him as an actor, but I really, 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 really enjoyed his first book. I thought it was a really excellent debut. It is the Dresden Files for people who can't stand Harry Dresden and think he's an absolute shithead. I really, really liked the first book. I thought it was just great. It was really good fun, so I'm very excited to see where the second book is going to go. Then we have The Left-Handed Booksellers of London by Garth Nix, also coming out on the 24th of September. This one sounds really fun. It's about basically heroic booksellers. I think they're spies. I think they're awesome. I think they're just really great. It sounds fun. I don't know, it's Garth Nix. Like, it's obviously going to be at least fun, if nothing else. So this is one I am looking forward to. Another one that I don't really want to know a huge amount about going in because I feel like the title kind of says it all. On the 1st of October, I have The Haunting of Alma Fielding by Kate Summerscale. I have read one of her books before and I really, really enjoyed it. So she's a nonfiction author. She wrote a book called The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher, which is not the one that I have read, but I believe it was really successful and it was turned into a TV show or a mini-series. I read Mrs. Robinson's Disgrace, which is about one of the first divorce cases in Victorian England, which was excellent. And this one sounds like it's going to be like my exact cup of tea. So basically we have a woman in 1938 London who's kind of an average, ordinary woman, and she begins to experience supernatural events in her home, and a man named Nandor Fodor, who is a Jewish-Hungarian refugee and a researcher for the International Institute of Cyclical Research, begins to investigate, and his kind of obsession deepens and her sort of disturbed state deepens as well. This is a non-fiction book. It sounds amazing. This is like so right up my alley. I am so pumped to read this, and the fact that it comes out in October is kind of perfect. Okay, so also coming out on the 1st of October is a book I don't know a huge amount about, but it sounded really cool, and I was kind of in a dystopian mood when I requested this. So this is Attack Surface, and this is by Cory Doctorow. So this is, I believe, a kind of 1984 Big Brother type dystopian novel, and we follow a character who actually, I believe, works for the intelligence that kind of spies on citizens, and this book is all about activism, courage, and the drive to make the world a better place. So maybe it's not quite as bleak as it sounds, but it sounds really interesting. So this is one, I don't know a huge amount about it, you guys. It's classic me. It sounded cool and I thought the cover was kind of cool, so I requested it. But I have been kind of having this hankering for dystopian fiction, in case you can't tell with some of the other stuff on this list, like Sweet Harmony. But it sounds like it's going to be a really interesting one. I'm looking forward to this. So next up is another big release for the year, and is one that I think a lot of people are excited about. I'm a little bit hesitant, and I'll explain why I bothered requesting this in the first place in a moment. This is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. So she's obviously a mega author, and she's got lots and lots of, you know, very excited fans who want to get their hands on this book. I love her concepts. I think I've read 4 or 5 of her books now. I love her concepts in theory, but not so much in practice. All of them sound absolutely amazing, but there's something about the way that she actually writes them and creates these stories that I don't tend to enjoy. So why did I bother requesting her new book? Because I have a feeling that this is going to be the make or break book for me and V.E. Schwab. It sounds incredible. It sounds like such an amazing, amazing book. I've heard it's quite lyrical and lovely. And if I don't like this one, I have to divorce myself from V.E. Schwab at this point. I've tried so hard to love her books. I think that this is the best shot I've got for enjoying her stuff. And yeah, it's kind of an all or nothing. So moving on to the 15th of October, there are 2 books that are 2 of my most anticipated of the year. I'm very excited. So the first one is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. I loved The 10,000 Doors of January, which was her debut novel, which came out last year. It was my number 2 book of 2019. And this is basically suffragette witches. What more do you need to know? It sounds amazing. This is one I'm really, really looking forward to. I've been wanting to read it way in advance, but that didn't end up happening, so hopefully it'll happen in September because I think it's going to be amazing, and everyone that I know who has read it so far has loved it, so I am very excited. Then the other book that is coming out on the 15th of October is The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. He wrote The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, or The 7.5 Deaths if you are an American viewer. I don't know why they changed that. But it was a book that I really, really, really enjoyed. It's one of those, I think I rated it 4 stars because I didn't love the ending, but it's been one of those books that kind of sat on my brain and is now over time has evolved into one of my favorites. I really, really enjoyed it. So this is another one that is going to be kind of weird, kind of genre defying, sort of like his first book, and I'm very curious to see how you follow up a book like The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. So from memory, we have, I believe, a detective and his companion. It's like 16 something or another. The detective gets imprisoned on this ship. He's being transported for trial, I believe. And so the companion has to team up with this young woman to do crime solving stuff. But also there's potentially a demon on this ship. It's the most terrible description of what this book is, but honestly his books I think are really, really hard to describe because they are weird and wonderful, and I'm really excited for this. So the next book that I have is the last one for the month of September. This is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I loved Uprooted. I really liked Spinning Silver, which I think I reviewed on this channel. I'll put a link up if I have. And I've read some of her Temeraire stuff as well. She's an author that I really like, but there are some things that I'm getting a little bit grumpy with her about, which you can see my lovely friend Judith's review. I will go ahead and link that if you want to learn a little bit more. But basically I have high hopes for this one. So this is basically a magic school that I think is trying to kill you. So there are no teachers, no holidays, and friendships are purely strategic, and the odds of survival are low, to say the least. So we follow a character who I believe is sort of destined to become like a dark wizard or a dark mage. It's really loud outside. And she's kind of like predestined to have this power, and she enters this school. It sounds really fun. My big problem with Naomi Novik is apparently she's a huge like LGBTQ ally, which is really nice, but she keeps setting up these sapphic relationships and they never follow through. Every single book of hers that I've read, there's been 2 women who have so much more chemistry than her aggressively straight romance, and it's really annoying, and I think that this is another one of those, unfortunately, but hey ho, we'll see. Naomi's got to give us some lesbians at some point though. Okay, moving on. Next is The Betrayals by Bridget Collins. So this is one I don't know a huge amount about, but Bridget Collins' debut book was The Binding, which was a huge release from last year. It had this beautiful cover. It was very well received. I haven't read it yet. It is sat on the shelf just there. I'm borrowing it from my sister. But this one looks really interesting as well. So I believe it is about a man who went to this prestigious academy in his youth but lost his desire for kind of academic study after a very violent event. Many years later, he's kind of returns in exile with his political career in tatters to this school. So we'll see how this goes. It sounds interesting. I kind of requested it because I loved the sound of her first book, and for some reason I decided that translated to her second book. But I think that this is going to be a really amazing atmospheric read for November and December. So the second to last book on this list is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. This comes out on the 17th of November. I am very excited for this, and I think a lot of other people are very excited for this as well. This is a historical fantasy YA novel that is a Romeo and Juliet retelling and is set in 1920s Shanghai. And it sounds amazing. It sounds so good. I'm really, really excited for this one. I cannot wait to read this. I feel like I very rarely get so like incredibly hyped up and excited for YA releases, but this one sounds so good. This sounds like something that I will absolutely love and adore. And the very last book on this list is The Burning God by R.F. Kuang. It comes out on the 26th of November. This is gonna suck. It's gonna be so brutal. I'm really excited because The Poppy War is one of my favorite series ever. The Poppy War was my best book of 2018. I loved The Dragon Republic, which I think I reviewed on this channel, which you can go ahead and check out. I'm really excited to learn what happens next because the end of The Dragon Republic and the end of The Poppy War actually both kind of slaps in the face. You just get punched in the face by this really, really lovely, nice author. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all ends, but I know it's not going to be happy. It's not going to go well for my favorite characters. We'll see. But yeah, The Burning God, end of November. It's going to be great. I added a couple of extra books, so those are the, I think, 36 books that I have to read for September. Guys. Yeah, it's going to be quite a lot. I don't know what I'm going to end up reading. I don't know what order I'm going to read in. I'm going to try to mood read from this list as much as humanly possible, so I may not necessarily get to all the, say, September releases this month. I may not get to all the sort of pre-September releases this month. I'm going to do my best though, you guys. It's a lot of reading. I am feeling very stressed out. In the comments below, I would love to hear what books you are excited to read in the month of September, if you're excited for any of these releases coming out, if you read any of them already, or you know, whatever you've got kicking around your TBR that you want to shout out. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.